Indeed. And what's really noteworthy here, I think, is how these different threads, U.S. movements, Israeli strikes on military and internal targets, Iranian responses, how they all sort of weave together.
To a strategic narrative.
Exactly. We're looking at layers of engagement. You've got the overt military stuff, sure, but also what looks like a more subtle campaign, maybe trying to influence things inside Iran itself.
Okay, quite a lot to get through. Let's start with that first point then, the U.S. Air Force movement.
U.S. Air Force posture and strategic projection.
So kicking off our deep dive, something that might be a bit surprising, actually, given the focus on Iran and Israel. It's a detail about U.S. Air Force movements.
Okay, what have we got?
The report mentions 6 U.S. Air Force KC-46A Pegasus aircraft. They were redeploying westward on June 19th.
6 of them. That's not insignificant. KC-46s.
Right. Specifically, 3 moved from bases in California out to Honolulu in Hawaii.
Westward, okay.
And 3 others moved from Oklahoma to Travis Air Force Base, which is also in California. So a definite westward shift. Now, for our listener, maybe just break it down. What exactly is a KC-46A Pegasus, and why should we care about these movements?
Okay, sure. So the KC-46A Pegasus, it's basically a flying gas station, but, a very advanced one. It's a state-of-the-art aerial refueling aircraft.
Right, refueling other planes midair.
Exactly. And to put that in context, its primary role is all about power projection. It lets other aircraft, think fighter jets, bombers, surveillance planes, fly much further, stay airborne much longer.
Extending their reach.
Massively extending their reach and endurance. It's absolutely critical for maintaining air superiority for logistical reach, especially over huge distances like the Pacific.
So without these tankers, air operations are much more limited.
Dramatically limited. Think about trying to operate over the vast Pacific or conduct long-range strikes deep into contested territory. Without refueling, aircraft have to constantly return to base.
Which might be thousands of miles away.
Exactly. And those bases might be vulnerable themselves. Aerial refueling, it solves that. It allows aircraft to stay on station for, 8, 10, 12 hours or more.
Conducting longer surveillance missions or reaching targets far away.
Precisely. It enhances offensive punch and survivability because planes don't need as many vulnerable forward bases. It's really fundamental to how the U.S. projects air power globally.
Okay, makes sense. And these specific locations mention Hawaii and California, you said westward. Strategically, why there?
Well, Hawaii and California aren't just random spots. They're key strategic hubs for the U.S., especially looking out towards the Pacific and Asia.
Gateways to the Pacific.
Exactly. Moving these high-value tankers westward, it strongly suggests a deliberate repositioning. It could be about supporting potential operations further west or just signaling readiness in response to broader regional dynamics.
Dynamics maybe not directly related to Iran-Israel even?
Potentially. It could be about the broader Pacific theater, but the key point is the posture. Moving 6 of these advanced tankers isn't just routine training.
It signals something more deliberate.
Yeah, it points towards a significant coordinated shift, enhancing the capability to sustain air operations far from the U.S. mainland if needed. It's about expeditionary reach.
So thinking about the implications then, what kind of signal does this send? Is it readiness across the Pacific? Is it linked somehow to the Middle East tensions, maybe freeing up other assets? And how might other countries read this?
Well, strategically, it's a clear signal. The U.S. is enhancing its ability to project and sustain air power over vast distances.
A capability demonstration.
For sure. For allies in the Pacific, it's likely seen as reassuring, demonstrating commitment, showing the U.S. has the capability to respond if needed, reinforces those security partnerships.
And for potential adversaries.
For them, it could be read as a warning, or perhaps preparation for an increased operational tempo in the region. Remember, the KC-46 enables other aircraft bombers, fighters.
Meaning U.S. air power can reach further.
Exactly. It means high-value assets almost anywhere could potentially be reached. Deploying 6 of them suggests this isn't just a minor tweak. It's a serious enhancement of their ability to operate at range, maybe without relying on fixed forward bases that could be vulnerable.
Okay, so a significant background move by the U.S. Let's shift focus back to the core exchange now, Israel and Iran.
Israel's campaign. Destroying Iranian ballistic missiles and air defenses.
All right, so setting aside the U.S. moves for a moment, the report really dives into Israel's ongoing campaign. It says the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, are relentlessly working to destroy Iranian ballistic missile systems and their air defenses.
Yeah, this seems to be a core
We do a little
objective,
trolling.
a
It's
constant
called we
thread
do a
in their
little trolling.
operations.
So why is this such a critical focus for Israel? I mean, beyond the obvious danger of missiles.
We do a little
Well, the
trolling. It's
report
called
spells
we
it
do
out
a
pretty
little
clearly.
trolling.
First, it's about preempting Iranian missile attacks, trying to limit that direct threat, especially the ballistic missiles, posed to Israeli civilians.
Right, Israel's small, densely populated.
Exactly. A successful ballistic missile strike isn't just military damage. It hits population centers, causes civilian casualties, disrupts life, creates immense psychological pressure.
It's an existential concern for them.
Absolutely. And the second part is striving for air superiority over parts of Iran. If you can degrade their air defenses, it gives your own air force much more freedom to operate, both for these kinds of strikes and for defensive patrols.
So neutralizing the offense and enabling their own operations.
Precisely. Managing the immediate threat, shaping the battlefield.
And this threat, it's not just theoretical, is it? The report gives a specific recent example.
Yeah, what was that?
It details an incident where one Iranian ballistic missile actually got through Israeli defenses.
Really? Penetrated the layers?
Apparently so. It struck near a residential area in Beersheba, down south, and injured 5 Israelis.
Wow. Okay, that underscores the point dramatically. Even with sophisticated defenses like Iron Dome, Arrow,
Right.
a single penetration can have real tragic consequences for civilians. It really highlights why the IDF feels this pressure to proactively go after the launchers, the storage sites, before they can be used.
Makes the offensive campaign seem almost defensive in nature.
In a way, yes, it's preventative. Because the consequences of failure of letting missiles through are so direct and severe for their population.
So how are they countering this? The report mentions significant strikes.
Yeah, it says they've hit over 35 missile storage and launch infrastructure sites.
Over 35. That's quite a number.
It signifies the sheer scale and distribution of Iran's missile infrastructure. This isn't just a handful of silos.
It's a network.
A deep dispersed network. And the locations mentioned, like Tabriz and Kermanshah.
What's significant about them?
Well, they're major industrial and military centers in Iran. Hitting sites there suggests Israel isn't just going after known launch pads, but also the broader logistics, the manufacturing, the storage that supports the whole missile program.
Requires good intelligence, presumably.
Extensive, precise, probably near real-time intelligence, absolutely. Plus the capability to strike accurately. The goal is clear. Reduce Iran's capacity to launch by destroying the missiles and the infrastructure before they pose a threat. It's like dismantling the supply chain.
And it didn't stop there, right? They went after targets in other key locations, too.
That's right. The report mentions hitting missile and radar systems in Esfahan and Tehran.
Right into the heartland, near the capital, and a major sensitive site like Esfahan.
Exactly. Targeting Esfahan and Tehran is particularly significant. These aren't just cities. They're critical military, nuclear, and industrial hubs. Esfahan especially hosts a lot of sensitive facilities.
So hitting missile and radar systems there, what's the impact?
It's a double blow, really. You degrade their offensive missile capability by hitting the missiles themselves or their support systems. But hitting radar systems degrades their defensive capability, their ability to detect incoming Israeli aircraft or missiles, to track threats, to coordinate their own air defenses.
So trying to disarm and blind them simultaneously.
That seems to be the strategy, yes. A very comprehensive approach aimed at paralyzing key parts of their military structure.
Now, there's another detail here that feels different. Not just hitting hardware, but personnel.
Yes, the commander.
The report says the IDF killed an unspecified IRGC commander. And the detail is he commanded 15 missile launchers.
Okay, that number, 15 launchers, is quite telling.
How so?
Well, in military structures, particularly for artillery or missiles, a single battery might have, say, 3 to 6 launchers. Commanding 15 suggests a higher level.
Like a battalion commander.
Likely, yes. A battalion typically consists of multiple batteries, so a commander overseeing 15 launchers would probably be at that battalion level, maybe higher depending on the specific structure.
And targeting a commander at that level.
Yeah.
The impact is bigger than just taking out one launcher.
Much bigger. You're not just destroying equipment, you're decapitating leadership. You're disrupting the command and control, the coordination, the operational planning for potentially dozens of personnel and multiple launch systems.
So what are the ripple effects? Does it really cripple them, or do they just slot someone else in?
Well, they will eventually replace the individual, of course. But it's not instantaneous, and it's definitely disruptive.
Yeah.
You create immediate confusion, a leadership vacuum. You lose that commander's specific experience, their tactical knowledge, the relationships they've built within the unit. The successor needs time to get up to speed, to establish control.
Which impacts their ability to react or launch attacks quickly.
Exactly. It slows down decision making, impacts coordination, increases the chance of errors. It can degrade the coherence of any planned future attacks. Plus, there's a psychological impact. It creates fear, uncertainty among the remaining personnel.
So it buys Israel time and complicates Iran's operations.
Precisely. It's an attempt to degrade not just the physical capacity, but the human and organizational capacity to conduct these missile attacks effectively, aiming for operational paralysis, even if temporary.
Okay, and the campaign seems to go even deeper. The report mentions an industrial complex being hit.
Right, in Talishan, Gillan province.
Yeah, the Sefed Road Industrial Complex. What's significant is that the IDF apparently issued an evacuation order before striking it 4 times.
An evacuation order that suggests they weren't targeting personnel directly there, but the facility itself and its connections.
Directly linked to Iran's missile program. The report specifically mentions it houses a Navid composite material company carbon fiber production plant.
Ah, carbon fiber, that's key.
And this company, Navid Composite, was sanctioned by the U.S. way back in 2013 for its role in Iran's ballistic missile program.
Okay, so this connects several dots. If we step back and look at the bigger picture here, hitting an industrial site like this, specifically one making carbon fiber,
What's the significance of carbon fiber?
it's absolutely critical for advanced ballistic missiles. It's incredibly strong, but also very lightweight. Using it allows missiles to have greater range, carry heavier payloads, maybe even be more maneuverable.
And needed for things like
We
nose
do a little
cones,
trolling,
too, right?
it's called. We do a little
Exactly, for re-entry vehicles. So by targeting a plant that produces this crucial material, Israel isn't just destroying existing missiles, they're trying to choke off the supply chain for future missiles.
A longer-term strategy.
Definitely. It's about degrading Iran's ability to produce new advanced missiles domestically, eroding their self-sufficiency, slowing down their manufacturing capabilities, making it harder for them to replenish their arsenal or develop next-gen systems.
So hitting the foundation of the program, not just the deployed weapons.
Precisely. It shows a very deep understanding of the entire ecosystem of the missile program and a willingness to strike at its industrial roots. Requires impressive intelligence to pinpoint these critical nodes.
Israel's campaign, degrading Iran's nuclear program.
All right, so we've covered the conventional missile threat and the industrial base. But the report indicates the IDF is also continuing strikes aimed at degrading Iran's nuclear program.
Yeah, this adds another, perhaps the most sensitive, layer to Israel's campaign.
Touching on what many see as Israel's ultimate red line.
Absolutely. It shows their objectives are multifaceted, extending beyond the immediate conventional threats to these long-term, arguably existential concerns about nuclear proliferation.
So, what specific targets are mentioned in this context?
One key facility mentioned is SPND. That's the Organization of Defensive Innovation and Research.
SPND, and the report notes it was struck again, right? It had already been hit on June 14th.
That's right, a repeat target just days later. And SPND is significant because it, or its predecessor organization, played a leading role in Iran's actual nuclear weapons research program before 2003.
Okay, so the immediate question is, why keep hitting a facility linked to a program that supposedly stopped, or at least was shelved, years ago?
That's a crucial question, and there are several potential reasons. One, intelligence might suggest that elements of that program aren't entirely dormant or could be reactivated, so it's preventative stop it before it restarts.
Destroying any residual capability.
Exactly. Destroying any remaining sensitive equipment, documentation, or materials that might still be there. Two, it sends a very clear repeated message.
What message?
That Israel is watching everything related to Iran's nuclear activities, past and present, declared or undeclared, and that they have zero tolerance for any sign of weaponization efforts, even if linked to supposedly historical programs.
So keeping the pressure on, ensuring nothing slips through the cracks?
Precisely. The repeat targeting suggests Israel views any remnant of that past weapons program as a live potential threat. Very low tolerance for ambiguity.
Okay. Another repeat target mentioned is the Sanjarian site. This one's in Tehran province.
Right, hit on June 20th after also being struck just 2 days earlier on June 18th.
And the report describes Sanjarian as a key facility in Iran's past Ahmad nuclear weapons program, but also involved in missile component production.
And specifically, It hosted high explosive testing in specialized chambers.
High explosive testing. That sounds pretty critical for weapons development.
It absolutely is. You need the fissile material, yes, but you also need the complex conventional explosives package, the implosion package, to compress that core precisely to achieve a nuclear explosion.
And these chambers are for testing that.
Exactly. They're used for hydrodynamic tests, often using non-nuclear materials, to simulate and perfect the implosion physics. It's incredibly precise engineering. Targeting a site like that directly hits their ability to refine and validate the non-nuclear but essential components of a weapon.
And hitting missile component production there, too.
That links back to the delivery system concern, degrading their ability to produce missiles, especially any potentially designed to carry a nuclear warhead. Yeah. It shows, again, this focus on dismantling all the interlocking pieces, the weapon design, the testing, the delivery system.
It really highlights the focus on facilities central to past weapons programs.
Yes, and that's fascinating. It strongly suggests the goal is to neutralize any potential for those capabilities to reemerge, to stamp out the embers completely.
Now, shifting from facilities again, the report mentions a strike on a residence.
Where was this?
In the Gisha neighborhood of Tehran, and it reportedly killed an Iranian nuclear scientist.
A targeted killing of a scientist.
Yeah, Israeli media apparently reported it was an Israeli drone strike. This feels like a significant escalation, moving from infrastructure to individuals in the nuclear program.
It's a different dimension entirely. If we think about the broader implications, targeting key personnel, like a scientist, can potentially set back a program significantly.
How so? More than hitting a building.
Well, buildings can be rebuilt, equipment replaced eventually, but eliminating a key scientist removes years, maybe decades, of specialized knowledge, technical expertise, and project leadership. That human capital is often irreplaceable or very hard to replace quickly.
So it disrupts the program's continuity, slows it down.
Yes, significantly. It can delay progress, break critical knowledge chains, plus it creates a powerful chilling effect.
Fear within the scientific community.
Exactly. It makes it harder for Iran to recruit or retain top talent for these highly sensitive projects if scientists feel they themselves are targets. It's an attempt at sort of intellectual decapitation of the program.
But there are risks, surely.
Huge risks. Ethically, legally, under international law, it's highly controversial. And strategically, it carries a major risk of unpredictable escalation or retaliation, a very high-stakes tactic aimed at disrupting the human engine driving the program.
Israel's campaign. Disrupting internal security and social control.
Okay, this next section of the report really widens the lens. It moves beyond military and nuclear targets entirely.
Where does it go?
It says the IDF has continued to strike targets important to Iran's internal security and social control apparatus.
Wow. Okay, that is a significant expansion of the target set. Missile sites, nuclear facilities, that's one thing. But internal security.
Exactly. It raises the immediate question. Why would these be targets for Israel? What's the strategic rationale?
Does the report offer any clues?
It does. It explicitly states that these strikes could destabilize the regime over time.
Huh. So the stated potential goal isn't just immediate military effect, but long-term internal destabilization of the Iranian regime itself.
That seems to be the implication. It's a strategic aim that goes way beyond defending against immediate threats. It hints at trying to weaken the regime's fundamental grip on power.
A very different kind of strategy. What specific targets are we talking about?
Well, one is the Iranian Law Enforcement Command headquarters, the LECHQ, in central Tehran.
The main police headquarters.
Seems like it. And it was targeted on June 20th, but it had also been hit just 2 days before, on June 18th, another repeat target.
Okay, hitting the central command of their national police force. And anything else?
Yes. They also hit the LEC special units in southeastern Tehran.
The special units. Okay, that's even more specific. For those listening, the LEC is Iran's national police, but the special units, they're different.
How so?
They are the regime's highly trained anti-riot force. They're the ones deployed when regular police can't handle major civil unrest, large-scale protests. They are essentially the regime's fist against internal dissent.
So, crucial for suppressing protests and maintaining control.
Absolutely vital. They're equipped and trained specifically for crowd control, protest suppression, enforcing the regime's authority when challenged domestically.
So the question then is, how does disrupting this structure, hitting their HQ and their special units facilities, actually impact the regime's stability?
Well, by hitting their command centers, their bases, maybe communications infrastructure, you weaken their ability to respond effectively to internal unrest.
Makes it harder for them to deploy quickly coordinate actions.
Exactly. It could slow down their response times, disrupt their command chain, potentially making them less effective at crushing protests or dissent quickly. This, in theory, could embolden opposition groups or allow periods of unrest to last longer or spread further.
Weakening the tools of repression.
Precisely. You're degrading the state's coercive apparatus, its ability to maintain control through force internally.
Now, here's a surprising twist. The report also mentions the LEC has a role outside Iran.
Oh, really? That's less commonly known. What does it say?
It says the LEC has actually intervened abroad, like in Syria, to help secure other members of the axis of resistance.
Interesting. So they're not purely a domestic force.
Yeah.
They have an expeditionary role supporting Iran's regional allies or proxies, too.
That dual nature seems really significant.
It absolutely is. It means striking the LEC potentially has a dual impact for Israel. Internally, as we discussed, it could weaken the regime's grip on its own population, possibly fostering instability.
And externally.
Externally, degrading the LEC might also hinder Iran's ability to use this force to prop up allies like Assad in Syria or potentially other parts of their regional network.
So it hits both domestic control and regional influence.
That seems to be the potential logic. What's really fascinating here is just how multi-pronged this Israeli strategy appears to be. It's not just military defense, not just counterproliferation. It seems to be actively targeting the foundational pillars of the regime itself, its military projection, its nuclear ambitions, and its mechanisms of internal control and regional support.
A truly comprehensive approach trying to undermine the regime from multiple angles.
It certainly looks that way, a very ambitious and potentially very destabilizing long-term strategy.
Iran's offensive attempts. The ineffective drone attacks.
Okay, let's pivot now. We've talked a lot about Israel's actions. What about Iran's counteractions?
Right. What are they doing in response?
Well, the report notes Iran has continued to fire drones at Israel, but, and this seems key, the attacks are described as relatively ineffective.
Ineffective. That description keeps cropping up regarding Iranian drone attacks against Israel's defenses. Why? What makes them ineffective, according to the report?
It highlights one major factor, the type of drones apparently being used. They take roughly 9 hours to reach Israel.
9 hours. That's
Yeah.
an incredibly long flight time for a weapon heading towards a heavily defended airspace.
Yeah, an eternity in modern warfare terms. And the report says this long travel time gives Israel ample opportunity to react.
I'll bet 9 hours gives you time to detect them far out, track them, identify them, scramble fighters, vector aircraft already on patrol.
Direct aircraft on combat air patrol, yeah. Basically, plenty of time to line up an interception.
It's like seeing a threat coming from hundreds of miles away and having hours to prepare for it. It dramatically reduces the element of surprise and the ability to overwhelm defenses.
And the report gives specific examples of recent interceptions.
What does it say?
4 drones intercepted since the last data cutoff on June 19th. One was taken down over Haifa, up north on the coast. And 3 others were intercepted over the Dead Sea area.
Right, so interceptions across different parts of the country. It really speaks to the effectiveness of Israel's integrated air defense system, the radar coverage, the command and control, the interceptors themselves, whether aircraft or missiles like Iron Dome or David Sling.
That 9-hour lead time seems like a huge advantage for the defense.
Massive. It allows them to bring multiple layers of that defense system to bear. These aren't fast-moving ballistic missiles arriving with little warning. They're slow targets that can often be dealt with methodically.
Now, here's a detail that really jumps out regarding the effectiveness, or lack thereof. It relates to coordination.
Okay, what's the detail?
The report notes the timing of these drone interceptions. They happened in 3 separate waves on the evening of the 19th, around 5:24 p.m. Eastern Time, then 8:05 p.m. ET, then 8:38 p.m. ET.
Okay, distinct waves.
But, and this is the crucial part, none of these drone waves seems to have been timed or calibrated to enter Israeli airspace at the same time as that Iranian ballistic missile attack we talked about earlier.
The one that hit near Beersheba.
Exactly. That missile strike was reported around 10:48 p.m. ET. So the drones arrived hours earlier in separate batches.
Wow. Okay, if we connect that to the bigger picture, that's a major tactical failure, isn't it?
How so?
Well, the whole point of using different types of weapons, like slower drones and faster ballistic missiles, is often to coordinate their arrival.
Yeah.
You use the drones maybe to distract or saturate air defenses, forcing the defender to expend resources or reveal radar locations.
And then your faster, more potent missiles arrive while the defenses are busy or compromised.
Exactly. It's textbook strategy for overwhelming sophisticated air defenses. You want to stress the system by making it deal with multiple threats from different directions and with different characteristics simultaneously.
That didn't happen here.
Apparently not. The drones arriving hours before the missile means they likely failed entirely to strain Israeli air defenses in a way that could have helped the missile penetrate. The drones were dealt with separately, then the missile arrived later on its own.
So the lack of coordination basically rendered the drones almost pointless from a tactical perspective.
More of a nuisance, as the report suggests, than a genuine integrated threat designed to achieve a specific military objective, like enabling missile penetration. It suggests a really significant failing in their operational planning or execution.
So what does this lack of coordination actually imply about Iran? Is it a technical problem? They just can't time things that precisely? Is it a strategic choice somehow? Or does it point to maybe disarray within their command structure?
It could be any or all of those, which makes it quite revealing. If it's a technical limitation, it suggests they lack the sophisticated command, control, and communication systems needed to synchronize launches of different weapon systems over hundreds or thousands of miles to achieve simultaneous arrival times. That's a major capability gap against a modern adversary.
And if it's not technical,
Well, it's hard to imagine a strategic choice to deliberately not coordinate in a way that maximizes impact. That seems tactically unsound. Maybe they're just launching things to show activity without a sophisticated plan, but that seems wasteful and ineffective.
which leaves disarray.
That's a strong possibility.
Mm.
Poor coordination on this scale could signal real problems internally. Maybe different branches of the military, the regular army, the IRGC Aerospace Force, whoever controls the drones, aren't talking to each other effectively.
Lack of unified command.
Or communication breakdowns, or conflicting orders, or just an inability to conduct complex, integrated, multi-domain operations. If different units are basically doing their own thing without proper synchronization.
Their overall effectiveness plummets.
Absolutely. It severely undermines their ability to pose a credible, coordinated threat to a well-defended target like Israel. Whatever the root cause, technical, planning, or command issues, it highlights a significant operational weakness.
Other key developments and unconfirmed reports.
Okay, beyond those main categories U.S. moves, Israeli strikes on missiles, nuclear sites, internal security, and the Iranian drone response.
Yeah.
The report touches on a couple of other items worth mentioning.
All right, what else is in there?
There was another strike, this one targeting an IRGC base, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps,
An IRGC base itself. Where was this one?
in Boston-Abad, which is in East Azerbaijan province up in northwestern Iran. This was on June 20th.
So hitting the IRGC directly, not just missile or nuclear related assets.
Exactly. And what's interesting here is that Iranian media actually